Hey guys, it's Lewis from Recycle Bicycle Sales here. In today's video, we want to talk about the 10 most common myths with cycling. There's a lot of different myths out there with cycling. Things like what type of bike you should be riding, different types of brakes, products, all these different things. Today we're going to find out if they're confirmed or busted. The first myth is that you need to have an expensive bike to start cycling. I think I disagree with this personally. Let me tell you why. First of all, we run Recycle Bicycle Sales, which is Adelaide's only pre-owned bike shop. So all of the bikes that we sell here are pre-owned. One of the good things about buying a pre-owned bike means that you can get a really good bang for buck. So maybe you get quite a nice bike, so it's lots of fun, but you didn't have to spend lots of money to get into it. So I don't think you have to spend a lot of money just to get into cycling. But I think the myth we're talking about here is, do you need an expensive bike to start cycling? No. But I would say if you can find your way onto carbon fiber, which I think is about $1,000 upwards, you're so much more likely to fall in love with it. So do I think you need to spend a lot of money to get into cycling? Honestly, no. I think this is busted. I say that because I keep saying that you want to spend about $1,000 at least to get started. In the world of cycling, $1,000 is relatively entry level for a bicycle. Again, I know that $1,000 leaving your bank account feels like a lot of money because it is, but in the world of cycling, it's more on the entry level. So I don't think you have to spend $10,000 just to get into cycling. The second one is that helmets are unnecessary and uncomfortable. First of all, I strongly disagree with this. I think helmets are one of the most important things when you're riding a bike. If you were to have a crash and you were unlucky enough that your head hits the floor, which is pretty common in a crash, your helmet is the only thing that's going to save you when your head impacts the ground. If your head hits the ground and you don't have a helmet, it's skull impacting, concrete or bitumen straight on the floor. That's a pretty ugly impact that your head's having. So having a helmet is the only thing that's going to save you in that situation. I know that a lot of people think that helmets can sometimes be uncomfortable. Again, I think that I disagree with this because there's lots of different sizes of helmet. And I think if you're finding your helmet uncomfortable, it means either, first of all, you've bought the wrong size, or second of all, maybe you haven't adjusted it to the shape of your head properly. All helmets have an adjustment on the back here that you can tighten and loosen, and that will tighten up around your head. Maybe it's too tight and it feels like a tourniquet around your head. Maybe it's too loose and you can feel it flapping around. You just want to make sure that it's sort of nice and attached to your head. It's worth mentioning as well that it might be uncomfortable because perhaps you bought the wrong style of helmet. Most different helmet manufacturers will have their, their racing aero road bike helmet, their mountain bike helmet, their commuting sort of ride to and from work sort of helmet. If you're a racer and you're using a mountain bike helmet, it might feel quite big and bulky. Whereas if you're a mountain biker and using an aero racing road bike helmet, it might almost look a little bit out of place on a mountain bike. It might almost look a little bit ugly, but that's because you've bought the wrong type of helmet. So if you've bought the correct helmet, they're certainly not uncomfortable and definitely not unnecessary. So this myth is busted. The third myth I want to talk about is that cyclists cannot and should not ride on the footpath. It's worth noting that what I say here could be different for different parts of the world, but here in Adelaide, South Australia, the answer is yes, you're allowed to ride on the footpath. However, if you're over 12 years old, which I imagine a lot of us cyclists are, you just need to have a bell. All you have to do is have a bell. That's literally all, legally speaking, that's all that you have to do. I think the law changed back in maybe 2016 or maybe 2017 or thereabouts. You weren't allowed to ride on the footpath up until then, but now you are if you have a bell. And let's be honest, even if you live somewhere that you're not legally required to have a bell, I think it's a good idea to have anyway. Even just being courteous to other footpath users, maybe they're walking their dog or they're walking a pram or they're just simply out walking. Everybody wants to use the footpath. And on that note, don't speed on the footpath, just be courteous. There's a unwritten etiquette around the footpath. You don't want to fly past someone. They might have their headphones in and they're jamming out, and then you suddenly arrive and just fly past them. That could scare them. And now that person is thinking, oh, I hate cyclists. And you've just ruined it for all the other cyclists. For this myth here in Adelaide, I'm going to say it's busted because I think you can ride on the footpath if you've got your bell. The fourth one I want to talk about is that cycling can cause knee problems. I don't think cycling necessarily causes knee problems unless your bike is set up incorrectly. Perhaps if you're riding around and you've got the cleats on the bottom of your shoes set up in a really weird angle, and it's different from how when you walk around on the footpath, maybe you walk around with your feet nice and straight, but then when they're clipped in, they sit outwards like that. You might find that being quite uncomfortable, but I would say that's because your bike is set up incorrectly. So cleat position would be one thing. And then another one might even be seat height. If you want a more in-depth video about seat height, we've done one further back on our channel. I think it might actually be possibly our most viewed video, so I think it was pretty good anyway. But seat height could be another one. If your seat is too high, you might find your pelvis actually rocking from side to side, which means your knee has to stretch all the way down to the bottom of the stroke to be able to work properly. So I'm not saying that's going to cause knee problems as such, but it's definitely something you should avoid. But on the other side, if I had $1 for every person that's walked in here saying that they have a knee problem from, playing footy or whatever it is, or soccer or anything like that, and now they're coming across to cycling because it's low impact, mate, I'd have 2 Porsches. This is because cycling can be really low impact on your knees. The movement that we do when we're cycling, the movement that our leg is taking is just a perfect circle. It's back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. If you're out running, perhaps playing basketball or footy or soccer or whatever, and you're changing directions and you're zigzagging and you're jumping and you're squatting and you're moving around so much, your knees are taking a bit of lateral force. Whereas when it's cycling, it's pretty much always just that forward motion. So I know that a lot of athletes from other sports move across to cycling specifically because they've had problems with their knees. However, only doing cycling and not doing anything else can eventually cause some bone density issues. Maybe your legs become really used to only doing that same movement. So every now and then, just go for a walk. So is this one busted? To be honest, I could make pretty good arguments both ways. I don't think it necessarily is busted, but I don't think it's confirmed either. So let's leave this one in the middle for now. We'll come back to it later. Number 5 is you should ride your bike in all weather conditions. On this topic, I reckon I could argue both ways. I would say I'm gonna split cyclists into 3 different categories. I'm gonna say category number 1 is you're racing and you wanna win the races and you wanna stand on the top of the podium and you're doing all of the races as often as they come around. The second type of rider might just be perhaps a commuter. Maybe you're riding to and from work and you just need it as transport to get around. And the third type, which I'd put myself under at the moment, is just someone that just wants to have fun. So I have a different answer for the 3 different categories of cyclists. I think if you're a racer, rain, hail or shine, I think you need to be ready for any type of race that's going to be coming up. If you've got a race booked in on Sunday and it starts to rain on Sunday, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to cancel the race. So it's good to know what the brakes are going to feel like, what it feels like going around a corner, maybe how different the temperature feels when you're breathing in cool air instead of hot air, all this sort of stuff. You want to be ready for all of those different things if you're a racer. If you're a commuter, you've got to get to and from work. And if it's raining, you've got to get to and from work. So maybe it's something to do with dressing appropriately for when the weather's good or when the weather's bad. If it's really good, you might want to wear a t-shirt and shorts. If it's bad, maybe you need to grab a rain jacket. And the third type of person, which again, I'd put myself under, is just the person that wants to have fun. At the moment, well, when I say at the moment, for the last year or so, I pretty much only ride on a Sunday morning when the weather is perfect because I want to go to the local coffee shop, which when I say the local coffee shop, I actually mean the cafe that I own next door. So I'm not really going anywhere. I'm going next door to buy a coffee, but nonetheless, I personally like to do it just for fun. I don't like riding in the rain because, in my opinion, I don't trust the cars in the dry and I really don't trust the cars in the wet. That's sort of my argument. But again, I'm the type of person that just likes to have fun on my bike. So I don't have to win the race. I don't have to get to work on my bike. I don't have to do this. I can just enjoy the ride. So is this busted or confirmed? Again, just like the last one, I'm gonna say it could go either way depending on the type of person that you are. For me, I'm gonna say this is confirmed. Number 6 is more gears means more faster. Is this confirmed or is this busted? I think it's busted personally. A lot of it comes down to the engine that's pushing it. When I say the engine, we all know that I'm talking about your legs. Comparing a 9-speed bike and a 12-speed bike, yes, there's more cogs on the back of the 12-speed bike, but at the end of the day, the ratio between the front chainring and the rear cassette, whatever cog you're sitting in on both of them, that's more the thing that I would want to compare. If you're, for example, a 50 tooth on the front and a 28 on the back, for example, if you've got the same ratio on the 9-speed as well, even though you've only got 9 cogs, you're still sitting in that same gear. So the cadence that you'll both be pedaling at is actually just the same. Yes, it means you're going to have less gears. So if you're climbing up a steep hill, the distance between each gear, or I suppose the cadence or the speed between each gear might be a little bit more extreme on the 9-speed. But to be honest, this really only matters going back up the hill. Once you're coming back down the hill at a really high speed, pretty much all cassettes top out at about 10 or 11 teeth. So there's really no difference between them. So if you're looking to get more out of your gears, I would recommend focusing on yourself, maybe getting a little bit stronger or doing some more training up in the hills perhaps. However, I would say if you do want it to get a little bit easier with the gears, you could perhaps consider a larger ratio cassette at the back. So a bigger size cassette so you can get up the steeper hills, or vice versa. If you're coming down the hills really fast and you're not being able to pedal at that top end speed, maybe you could go to a smaller cassette instead, or a bigger front chainring. So is this busted or confirmed? This is busted. The seventh one we want to talk about is you should stand up when you're riding up a hill. In my opinion, this is a difficult one to answer. I think everybody has a slightly different body. I can tell you that myself personally, if I'm pedaling up a hill and then I stand up to pedal up the hill, my heart rate instantly rises by at least 15 beats per minute, which is quite a bit. I don't know if that's saying something bad about my lungs or my heart, but point being, it doesn't work super well for me. If I stand up to pedal up a steep section of hill, it's usually a short, punchy effort. It's not something that I can hold for a very long time. I know that there's a lot of people out there that maybe can hold it a lot longer and might find it very beneficial standing up going up the hill. Personally, that's not me though. But again, I know there's people on both sides. So is this one confirmed or busted? I think this is busted. Number 8 is that only men are competitive cyclists. I think we all know sitting at home that this one is absolutely busted. We've probably all heard of the Tour de France and the Tour de Femmes, the women's version of the Tour de France. Also, Tiffany Cromwell races for Australia. She's actually raced in the Olympics back in Tokyo in 2020 or 2021. So she's raced at the highest level of cycling, representing Australia in the Olympics. She actually recently sold a bike in here and donated a whole bunch of clothes as well. She's actually just a really lovely person too. And I know full well that if I went on a bike ride with her, I'd have to bring an e-bike just to keep up. Maybe not even an e-bike, probably a motorbike. So, busted. Number 9, I'm slow and I shouldn't race my bike. Busted. The reason that I say this is busted is most different racing groups around the world usually have a few different categories. Yes, you have your elite and your borderline Tour de France Olympians, I suppose, but there's always other levels below that. I know that when I started in D grade and worked my way up slowly before I eventually got to the faster groups. And that's the best bit about racing. You notice improvement as you become more experienced. So if you're sitting at home thinking, should I start racing? You've already answered your question. The answer is yes. We've done a video further back on our YouTube channel talking about how to transition from casual cycling across into racing. That might be a video that you might like to watch. Number 10 is that you don't need to warm up before going on a bike ride. This one is an interesting topic to talk about. I think personally, when I go for a bike ride, I don't do any particular stretching routine or anything before I go for the bike ride. I just simply get on my bike and take the first 5 or 10 minutes at a relatively cruisy pace. Not only could I be like chatting with a friend, but even just sitting upright, moving my body around, getting my legs a little bit warmed up in that position that they're gonna be riding in. So I don't follow any very particular warm-up routine. I just simply take the first 5 minutes a little bit easier. But also, you know your body. If you've got any particular injuries that you're overcoming, maybe you've got tight quads or tight hamstrings or something like that, it might be worthwhile just stretching out a little bit before you go on a bike ride. It might even help you get a little bit more performance out of that effort. So for me, this is confirmed, but I don't think you have to follow it like the Bible. I hope this video helped dispel the myths about some of the things to do with cycling. If nothing else, I hope it was entertaining for you. Otherwise, I'm going to say thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next video. See ya.